Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be giving you an update on two storms which are going to be moving throughout the eastern US. These are both going to be producing quite a bit of rainfall. The first storm will be a little bit more isolated through parts of the northeast, and then in the southeast for the second storm, that's going to be a little bit more widespread, where we'll have rainfall totals around 2 to 4 inches or even higher in a few spots. Taking a look at the current National Weather Service page, you can see that we have a few red flag warnings in effect for parts of Oregon and California, as well as some excessive heat warnings and heat advisories in the Northwest. We have some flood watches for much of the Rockies, so that goes from New Mexico and Colorado all the way up to Oregon and Idaho. And then we have some air quality alerts and dense fog advisories in parts of the northern Rockies and into the northern plains, with a few heat advisories in the orange color for parts of the southeast and the southern plains, as well as some excessive heat warnings scattered throughout parts of the southeast and the southern plains. Other than that, we don't have many other watches or warnings currently in place. Yesterday, we had a high temperature of 111 degrees in parts of Death Valley, California. The low temperature was tied between 35 miles west-southwest of Chote, Montana, and also Pierce, Idaho. Both of them got down to 36 degrees Fahrenheit. The highest rainfall report was in East Windsor, New Jersey, where yesterday they got 4.79 inches of rainfall. No snowfall reports as of yesterday. Here's a look at the European model, and we're going to be timing these two systems out. So we're going to start off with your first system, which is this batch of rainfall which you see in through the Tennessee Valley. There's also the second storm, which is on this current slide right here to down here. So it's in the southeast. The other storm is in the Ohio Valley and the Tennessee Valley, and this one will be moving up into the northeast, kind of like this. And the second storm in the southeast will be moving up the coast, and then it'll kind of just veer off to the side. So that's the general track of both of these storms so far, and most of these most of the rainfall from the first storm is going to be centered in the Tennessee Valley and the coastal Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. The second storm will have most of its rainfall centered in the Southeast. Not much of that will actually move up the coast that much. So taking a look at for tomorrow morning, you can see that we have a low pressure system, which is by this point somewhere over Virginia or North Carolina. So we have this band of rainfall, which is just over parts of the Tennessee Valley and the Mid-Atlantic by this point. And again, this is going to be moving up the coast. It'll intensify a little bit, and you'll see some of that rainfall on the back end. And you could even classify this maybe as a third storm, but you're going to see more additional rainfall on the back end for parts of the interior northeast. So it's going to be fairly potent over these areas where we'll see 1 to 2 inches of rainfall. The European model, and this will be a big factor into how much rainfall you actually get. This little band of rainfall, which is very, very heavy, depending on where exactly the storm moves, will also dictate where that band of rainfall is. So, for example, if this low pressure system is maybe, let's say, 25 to 50 miles closer, now that band of rainfall would be covering much of the coastal areas of the Northeast instead of being pretty much offshore. So that is a big distinction, and that's a difference between the different models. Usually when you're in the summertime, you don't really have to look at 4 or 5 different models like you do in the wintertime to figure out what exactly is going to happen. Since it's rainfall, it's not as precise. It doesn't have to be as precise, whereas when you're talking about snowfall, it's a lot more impactful whether you get 1 inch of snowfall or whether you get 4 inches of snowfall. Not so impactful whether you get a quarter of an inch of rainfall or half an inch of rainfall. But in this case, I definitely did look at 3 or 4 or even 5 models to try and figure out what exactly will happen, because this tiny band of rainfall, this is going to be a big shift. It could go from maybe just an inch of rainfall to closer to 4 inches of rainfall, just depending on exactly where that heaviest line of rainfall is. You're also starting to see more of that storm develop in through parts of the southeast, and that's happening at the same time that this nor'easter, you could say, is moving up the coast. Winds will also be strong if you live along the immediate coast, so I would say within 20 miles of the coast, you might have some winds gusting up near 35 to 45 miles per hour at times. That first storm moves out again. This is the rainfall on the back end. This is somewhat attached to the nor'easter, but again, it's not fully attached. If you wanted to, you could classify that as the third storm. I'm just kind of putting this all together just because it's happening within a relatively close distance of one another. So we have more of that rain back in the interior northeast, and then we have some more rain showers. Nothing too developed by this point in parts of the southeast. This will eventually form up a low pressure, and that'll move up the coast just like that other nor'easter did, except this one is going to kind of veer off once it gets closer to Virginia. Once it gets there, it'll start to kind of move off further to the east. Taking a look at for Monday night, you can see that we have some of those rain showers still lingering in through parts of the southeast. So again, these are going to be scattered thunderstorms. Not all of these areas are going to be dealing with rainfall at once. I know the model does show that this entire part of the southeast is seeing rainfall at this point. That is a 6-hour average. So this is showing you how much rainfall you saw within that 6-hour time period. Not saying that every single area is getting rainfall at that time. So these are probably going to be broken up thunderstorms, and then eventually that'll form up one bigger storm later in the week. Taking a look at for Wednesday, you can see that we have this would be Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. You can see that that storm has developed. So it was back in Alabama and Georgia, and now it moved up through parts of the Carolinas, and it's moving up the coast, but it is much farther away. So if we look at the previous track from the first storm, it started off in parts of Kentucky, and then it kind of moved very close to the shore, and then moved further out into the northern Atlantic. What we're dealing with the second system is a lot further out to sea. So you're only going to get impacts if you live pretty much from North Carolina on southward. If you live north of there, maybe Southern Virginia gets some rainfall, but I would say unless you live along the immediate shoreline for some parts in the northeast, you probably will be fine, and you probably won't have many impacts from this storm. So it's going to be isolated to parts of the southeast for the most part with this system. You can see that moves out. So we have your first type of system moving in through parts of Nova Scotia. So we have what was that storm off the shore of North Carolina and Virginia. That moved out, and now we're dealing with this secondary low pressure just kind of sitting here over the Carolinas. You can see that most of the rainfall is offshore by this point. So even if you live in the southeast by this point, this is Wednesday morning, you're not really dealing with too much rainfall at this point. So most of the rain has gone. You might be dealing with a few thunderstorms here and there, but nothing in terms of sustained rainfall. If we look at over the next 5 days or so, and look at the rainfall totals, you can see what I was talking about in terms of the heavy band of rainfall, and you can see that we have for areas further to the north, maybe just half an inch or even less than that. We have some areas getting less than a tenth of an inch of rainfall. And then you have right along this band right here, a thin, narrow area, which is about 25 to 50 miles wide, that's dealing with rainfall around 3 to 5 inches of rain. So that could definitely cause some issues if we go from seeing maybe a tenth of an inch of rainfall to 3 to 5 inches of rainfall. That's a huge difference, and that definitely does cause some issues when you're planning out your day. So we're gonna have to continue to watch this. I might, if this does change, then I might make another video on it, because if this band of rain moves even a little bit further north or south, that has a big implication on a lot of people's work week and work days. So that is going to have a lot of implications depending on how far north or south this storm moves. And then in the southeast, we also have quite a bit of rainfall, especially if you live closer to the coastal areas. So if you live within probably about 50 to 100 miles of the coast, you're dealing with rainfall that's going to be right around 1 to 3 inches. And especially if you live in the outer banks of North Carolina, or just generally in eastern North Carolina, we have rainfall totals that are going to be right around 4 to 6 inches, especially if you live again along the outer banks in some of those islands over there. That could definitely be one of the bullseye areas in terms of the total rainfall from these two events. taking a look at the 7-day outlook from the Weather Prediction Center and taking a look at their forecast, you can see how they kind of rounded out a lot more. So they have that 2-inch line getting much further to the north than what the European model is showing. Now, this is going over 7 days, so this goes through August 7th, and the last image we just looked at only goes through August 5th, but most of it should be the same. They're thinking that we're going to get additional rainfall in parts of the eastern Carolinas. This is from the secondary storm, and then also any rainfall that would happen after that, you're going to get another storm right after that one. So you're going to get extra rainfall added on to what you've already seen from the storm. And then further north into the northeast, they're expecting another storm to also move in there, and that's going to add on to the totals. I think they probably have that 1 to 2 inch line a little bit too far to the north, in my opinion. I don't think it'll actually make it that far up, considering what we've seen from the European model and other models. But again, that's their forecast, and I'm definitely not going to criticize it because we have not really too good of an idea of what's going to happen, especially considering that 3 or 4 of the models have different takes on exactly where that heaviest band of rainfall is. If you live back in the Tennessee Valley, that first storm will provide you with probably right around half an inch to even an inch and a half of rainfall within some of those spots. And looking at the drought monitor, we do have a little bit of drought to clear up in parts of the mid-Atlantic and into parts of the Ohio Valley, and that should be cleared up by the time that these 2 storms are over. You should be getting enough rainfall to clear that up, considering that you're only at the first stage of the drought. You're only in the abnormally dry or moderate drought category, so nothing that's going to be too hard to erase within 1 or 2 days of steady rainfall. And then up in northern New England and in the interior northeast, I think this could also be significantly lowered. I don't think all of that will go away, but I think most of that will, considering that we have that area of rainfall that should produce another 1 to 2 inches of rainfall right within this zone. And then adding on whatever rainfall we're also going to see throughout the rest of the week and the rest of next week, that should help this drought kind of get relieved quite easily. That is going to wrap it up for today's video. Please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.